Okay, there we go. We are live now. Facebook has changed so much about how to actually get the live started. So apologies for starting a few minutes late. I was looking at all the new buttons that I have to click in order to actually go live. So I know a lot of you were catching the recording for this, so that is not a problem at all. If anyone is able to make it live, obviously feel free to say any questions in the chat as I'm talking through things, or if you are catching the recording, feel free to leave a comment and I will get that and I will answer that. So I've had a lot of questions coming up about therapy intensives and what this looks like from the billing side for multiple different aspects, and then specifically when it comes to an out-of-pocket super bill, when you would want to do an out-of-pocket intensive that you would want to do a super bill for, just basically what does that literally look like. So I'm gonna talk about a few different options today, and then like I said, any questions, feel free to let me know. I organize my thoughts best if I can write also while I talk, so I'll be putting some things in the chat about that. So the first kind of area around billing that I want to talk about when it comes to therapy intensives is this in-network versus out-of-network situation. That's what a lot of people have questions about. I personally am not in network with insurance, but I know a number of therapists who are still able to make a version of therapy intensives work for them. So if you are in network, as we know, really what we're working with is the 90837, which is anything that is higher than 53 minutes and above. So generally, yes, you would bill a 90837 even if you were meeting for 3 hours for a therapy intensive, but most insurance plans are only going to cover 1 hour of that meeting. I have a cat who is very demanding of my attention right now. There are some insurance companies that I've heard of, some insurance companies in some states, some tiers of a specific plan that will cover a version of a therapy intensive. So for example, some plans in some states, depending on where it is, will allow you to bill 2 90834s. So that would be 90-ish minutes, so an extended therapy session. Some companies, again, in some states, will allow you to bill 2 90837s in a given day, so that's up to 2 hours. So if you are in network with an insurance company, highly recommend that you call your insurance rep, anyone who you talk to who can answer these questions about, is there the potential for billing multiple 90834s or 37s in a given way? Because if so, and you are an in-network provider, then actually you can offer extended therapy sessions to a client's in-network benefits. So obviously that's fantastic. The difference then, number one, you want to make sure that it's actually covered. Number two, you want to ask any questions about almost like, is there anything you can expect if you do start to bill multiple of those? Because as we know, even therapists who only see their clients in the 90837 model, if you bill too many of those, you open up the potential for an audit. So you would want to ask that insurance rep, like, what kind of things you should be documenting in session if you're billing 2 90834s or 2 90837s in a given day. Ask any questions around that. Ask if they're needing to see any specific assessments. Some therapists I've heard have gotten pre-authorization from the insurance company. So instead of just asking the question, can I bill 2 of these codes on each day? Can I actually be authorized to do this based on what the diagnosis is, what the treatment plan is, how you're working with the client, and stuff like that. So some people have asked to pre-authorize that version of care, and even if the insurance company doesn't normally allow it, sometimes they have allowed it. So it's always helpful to ask, right? The worst thing that you can learn is that the answer is no, we don't do that. Stick to your 1 unit of 90834 or 37 in a given day. So that's something to look into and to think about. As some of you have seen me talk about, maybe you've seen one of my other lives on pricing the intensives, you know that I encourage you to charge 20 to 50% above your hourly rate when you do that. Now, the difference between that recommendation and the recommendation, or if you are looking for how to make this an in-network intensive, obviously you can't bill a different price for the intensive. If you're billing your in-network insurance plan with 90834 or 37, even if you do 2 units at that, they're still going to reimburse you at the same rate that they normally would. So that's really the only difference around if you're doing it in-network. So to recap, if you are an in-network therapist and you want to try to make intensives work for you, call, see if you can get 2 90834s or 37s covered in a given day. And if there's anything the insurance rep needs from you, call and see if you need a pre-authorization to work in that way. But that's really the whole gist within in-network. Again, some plans in some states allow it. Many plans, many states will not allow it. They're going to say, no, you are limited to the 1 90837, whether that's the 53 minutes or whether that's 153 minutes, and we're going to reimburse you the same amount either way. So that's that version. And then the out-of-pocket version, obviously that's where you get a lot more flexibility with what you're billing amount-wise per hour, as well as how many hours you are billing. So there are some people who purely just do private pay intensives of, you're likely not going to get reimbursed for 100%, even like 80% of the services. Some private pay therapists don't even offer Superbills. I know that's a personal choice. So there's private pay where you would just kind of give them a receipt and charge for services. If you are open to submitting a super bill for your clients, then you have a couple different options. A lot of people have asked me, like, specifically, what does that look like on a super bill? And there's a few different options here. So depending on what EHR you use, I use Jane app where I can customize different types of appointments. So I have 90-minute sessions, 2-hour sessions, 3-hour sessions. For couples, for individuals, I have lots of different types of sessions. I know some other EHRs, you might only have an option for, this is a 90837, this is a 90834. So it depends on what you have in your EHR. But if you can customize it, then you can label exactly what it is. So mine, for example, might say 3-hour therapy intensive session, 90837. And that's all I have on there. There have been, if I know the client has talked with their insurance rep, because some clients are more savvy about navigating their insurance benefits, obviously, than I would be. So some clients have told me, I talked with my insurance rep, they said that you can bill up to 2 units of the 90837 per day. So if that's the case, then that's what I'll have reflected on my super bill. It will say that it's a 3-hour session, but it will say 2 units of 90837. So then as the insurance claims processor is looking at that super bill, they will see 2 90837 and then, reimburse the client accordingly for that. I've had clients who have gotten reimbursed up to like 50% of their intensive. Some have maybe been a little bit more, some obviously a little less, depending on what their specific benefits are. But what I do tend to tell clients, to be very transparent, is that piece around technically, what's the word I'm looking for? On average, for the majority of the time, most insurance plans are going to reimburse 1 hour of our therapy intensive. So if we're meeting for 90 minutes, if we're meeting for 2 or 3 hours, at least one of those hours is eligible for reimbursement. It is likely the other 2 or 1 hour is going to be either contributing to your out-of-pocket max, or is just going to be an out-of-pocket expense and you'll be reimbursed for 1 hour. So I make sure that clients know that going into it so that they can think about what their financial situation looks like. If that works for them, that's okay with them, and then we just move forward from there. But so yes, my super bill says what the appointment is. If it's a 2-hour intensive, a 90-minute intensive, a 3-hour intensive, if it was 3 days of 3 hours each day, so up to 9 hours total. And I only use the 90837 code. I've had a lot of people ask me about, they just discontinued, I believe it was January 1st, 2023. There used to be an extended session code that people could use. In January 1st, 2023, they discontinued that code. There are some therapists who are using an extended crisis code. Obviously, if you are using that code, you just want to be mindful of what you are documenting in a session, because traditionally the crisis code is meant for, like, you are managing crisis in the moment. And there are certainly intensives where crisis moments may come up depending on what you're working on, or even if you just need to help regulate if something got triggered or activated in a session. I think that can certainly count. But for those of us who might be doing anxiety intensives where the client isn't having panic attacks, but they have social anxiety, or we're processing grief, or we're working on couples therapy, which insurance already has a hard enough time providing reimbursement for consistently, then it might be called into question if you are using that extended crisis code in your Superbill. So be mindful of how you're using that. If it does apply, if you are doing some kind of crisis management work, obviously just document that in your notes, so that if someone were to ever look at your files, then they would just be on board with that, of like, okay, clearly that medical necessity for that code. But otherwise, there really is no other way to bill on top of the 90837. So you have the option for the extended crisis code, but there's no other extended code just to show that you met more for that. For those of you who are here live, does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that? I know that's a little tricky. It's a little interesting to try to navigate around. I'm also gonna refresh. Okay, there you go. My comments were just loading for a little bit, so I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. So what my Superbill looks like is literally the lines of the service. So if you've given Superbills to clients before, you have probably seen what they look like. So again, mine will say 3-hour intensive therapy session, 1 unit, CPT code 90837 or 90847 or whatever it is that I'm meeting them for. If I am giving, a lot of times with intensives, if I'm doing things back to back, I might do the intake one day and then I might do the intensive session the next day. I know some EHRs auto-generate the Superbill overnight. I think Simple Practice does that. I don't auto-generate Superbills. I'd rather do them all together when it's a multi-day intensive like that, because then I get to show all the different lines of services. So I'll have 1 unit of a 90791 for the intake, and then it'll show the next day 1 unit 90837 for the intensive. And then it'll show the total price that I charged for that. And then that is what I'm giving to the client to submit their Superbill for. So either way, then their insurance company is being able to see what are the services, so those CPT codes. And then I've had mixed feedback from clients on how this has gone. And granted, not every client tells me in depth in the details about what they're getting reimbursed. But some people have said, I've had at least a couple clients say, even though what was given on the Superbill was 1 unit, 90837, because I labeled it as a 3-hour appointment, they said they were able to kind of argue with their insurance company of no, this was 3 hours of therapy, so I need 3 hours of therapy reimbursed. And for, again, those couple of people, that did work. So I'm always encouraging clients to be, advocating. These are their services, these are their benefits. There's only so much I can do as the provider, especially when for intensives, a lot of people are just kind of seeing me for the one-off session and then continuing with their normal therapist or just going about their days, whatever they're doing. So always encourage them to check their benefits, to speak with their insurance rep, to just explain the situation of what the therapy intensive was for. Honestly, a lot of insurance companies do like that their clients are generally seeking less use of their benefits with a therapy intensive. Yes, the cost is higher, but there are a lot of people who do a therapy intensive once a quarter, once a year, depending on what exactly it is they're booking, and then they're not otherwise using their therapy benefits. So that's something, unfortunately, insurance companies like. They want people to use less of their benefits because that costs them less money. So if clients can kind of advocate for it, I have seen it be successful where they say, this is what the service was, this is how much I'm looking to get reimbursed. And again, some insurance companies I'm sure will say, no, we're only going to cover the 1 hour, but otherwise they may cover more. So that's great. So for, again, those of you who are here, if you're here live, let me know if there's any other questions you have about billing, about Superbills. Again, if you're watching the recording, feel free to comment, and I will get back to your questions as I see them. But any other questions about the billing or the Superbill part? And I know sometimes it takes time to type, so I'll wait for some time to type. But otherwise, it's fairly simple. Again, if you are in network, double check with your insurance rep if you can bill multiple units, because that's great if you can get 90 to 120 minutes fully covered by the insurance company. I have also seen some people work, kind of to come back to that in-network point of more like a working intensively model. So maybe they do 2 to 3 sessions, 2 to 3 1-hour sessions a week, as opposed to 2 to 3 hours in a day. So maybe it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we meet for an hour. And I've seen a lot of insurance companies be more amenable to that of, okay, yeah, depending on diagnosis, depending on presentation, that makes sense that the client might need more points of contact compared to 2 to 3 hours in a given day, which is interesting. But I've seen a lot of in-network therapists make that option work compared to multiple hours in one day, just do multiple hours spread out 1 hour each session across the week. So obviously that's an option too. That would be 1 unit of 90837 each day that you're doing that. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I know someone asked to literally see an example of what my Superbills look like. I would need to de-identify an example of that, but I'm happy to upload that into the files section just for you all to see. But literally all it's going to show is 1 unit 908, 907, 91, 1 unit 90837, 3-hour intensive session. So literally all it is. Keep it very simple. Keep your clients informed. Again, let them know expectations around only 1 hour may be covered if we are billing. When something that I just thought of too, a lot of clients do use their FSA or their HSA card for billing. I think that makes a little bit of a difference in the sense of, I don't know exactly how that works on the FSA or HSA perspective, but I haven't had clients say they needed like proof per se for, what session was done. I do give them the Superbill still, so it still has any medical information, diagnosis, CPT codes, stuff like that. But I think if clients do have the ability to use an FSA or an HSA, it tends to be a lot easier to work with because that's just an amount of money that is in an account that they are pulling from for the service that they got. So then we're not really involving the insurance plan of, we will only reimburse 1 hour. So that's something to think about as well, and to talk with your clients if they do have those types of benefits, because then that would be much easier for, let's just bill this account and you can use all of it instead of charging and maybe only being reimbursed for a portion of it. So those are the big things that I think about. So the in-network intensives, the out-of-network intensives / out-of-pocket intensives, and then are they using HSA or FSA? But that's all that I have. If you all have questions after listening to this, feel free to, again, put questions on the video. You can also DM me as well. Sometimes the DMs will come through as a hidden request though. So if you do DM me, maybe just comment on the video and say, hey, I sent you a DM, and then I'll check it. I'll make sure that I check it and it's not lost in hidden DMs, because I get a lot of hidden DMs from virtual assistants across the world. So I want to make sure that I see yours if you do have a question. But thank you all for making it here live. Thanks for bearing with me with some of the tech difficulties at the beginning. Now I think I know all the correct buttons to press since Facebook has recently updated how they work their lives. But otherwise, if there are other topics, things that you all would like me to share more information about, I'm happy to do that. I might put a poll in the group chat because I've seen lots of people asking lots of types of questions. So just to see if there's any common themes that you all want to hear about. And then on April 2nd, one that I do already have scheduled is just generally I'm going to share more about Again, what are all the options you can do for intensives? How can you market them on your website so that they actually sell? And how to handle converting those intro calls, because you will get intro calls from them, but it's important to convert those intro calls instead of spending time on intro calls and people are confused kind of what they are. So that information is already in this group under the events, and hopefully I will see you all there. You are so welcome if you've been here live, and again, if you caught the recording, again, any questions, let me know. And otherwise, hope you all have a good rest of your Friday or whatever day you are watching this recording on, and I will talk with you all soon. Bye.